It's 6:01. If my computer will come back on. Hello? While this is trying to figure out what it's doing, I'll read it off of the paper. All right, this is calling the board meeting together. This is the Harwich Community Preservation Committee, regular CPC meeting agenda in the Don B. Griffin Room, Harwich Town Hall, 732 Main Street, Harwich, at 6 p.m. Thursday, December 5th, 2024. The next thing is, for any guests that would like to speak, you have the floor, sir. Would you come up and identify yourself, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And just one informational for the general public. In this area of public discussion, once this is over, that's the end of the discussion from the public. The rest of it is the business of the CPC. So
Understood.
whatever you hear, you won't be able to react to until the next meeting.
Gotcha.
You've got the
Thank you.
floor.
Thank you. Matt Sutphin, I live in Harvard Center. I'm here with my wife, Cynthia.
Welcome.
Glad to be before you. I want to comment on the Island Pond Boardwalk, which is of considerable concern to my wife and myself. I feel awkward about it because I don't want to speak against Jimmy Marceline, who is the Arboretum is named for. I remember him when I was 10, going up to try to sell him copper with my stepfather. And my stepfather told me that, well, Jimmy's going to drive a hard bargain. And he did, but that's how he could later in life be very generous to all of us. I think of him kind of like a Mount Rushmore of Harwich. So, that having been said, I move ahead at Island Pond with my wife. We've cobbled together a good deal of land at one time, starting in the late 70s. Jackie Hour, a fisherman in Chatham, had 10 acres across from the house, and he wanted to do a subdivision. And my wife, the paint had hardly dried on the house that was built. And my wife wasn't out there. I was not married to Sin at the time. But she and her ex-husband weren't out there to have neighbors. That was why they built their house. So we started buying up land. I jumped in a few years later as a participant, and 7 of us, bought up a big chunk of land out there over time. We had to clean the title and eventually did a perimeter plan. And in 2000, we sold it. I don't want you to misunderstand me. We did this for ourselves, but it's supposed to let you understand that our commitment to our neighborhood. We had 16 or 18 A&R lots out there on Island Pond Trail. We could have sold it all and gone to Belize. But among us, we played around with our disparate ownerships, found a number that the land bank, the state would match to buy it all for our benefit going forward, for the town's benefit going forward, and for our posterity. We feel great about it. The irony of it is that I'm before you now about a development in Island Pond that has Jimmy Marceline's name on it, namely this boardwalk, which I don't know fully where it goes to. I did read the BSC a description of work. It concerned me, a walkway that admittedly, when it's new, will be used, but then I wonder how much it will be used after it's constructed. Ancillary to the walkway is a plan to create a trail going to the far side of Island Pond. We think it might end up going over some of our land, maybe, maybe not. But the description of the work is 10 feet cleared either side of the path. And this is the amazing thing. Cleared either side of the path so that ticks won't jump onto people walking on the path. This is so far away from preservation and conservation that I scratch my head thinking, what are we talking about? So I'm here to convey that, and lastly, because I won't use up too much time, it bothers me that you might proffer up the $60,000 requested for design to the Conservation Commission. Conservation Commission has given the project enough of its blessing that I'm here before you tonight, and it strikes me as that it would be very odd were you to give them the $60,000, that when the project went back to them, they would deny it. It just seems totally odd to me. Town would spend $60,000, and the Conservation Commission would deny the project. Now, of course, they'll do something. There'll be a middle ground that somebody will establish, but the fact is the project will go forward. And it is my hope that you would remand this whole idea of its project back to the Conservation Commission for some kind of a schematic, some kind of conversation with the public, some kind of general scheme about what's going to happen. I never heard about any of this till the 11th hour. I mean, nobody advertised that the Conservation Commission would be given the blessing, would be given the blessing, a blessing for this project. In fact, Conservation Commission's minutes advertise the full endorsement of the Conservation Commission. Now, so when you go to town meeting and somebody gets up and says, we have a full endorsement of the Conservation Commission, how do you think the vote's going to go? I know how the vote's going to go. And it just seems just totally out of place that could happen. Send it back, get the public involved, work it out. This BCS plan is just too ripe, and let them come back to you after they've told us all what the Conservation Commission's told everybody what they can tolerate and what they can't. I have the same, while I'm here, just quickly, I'm trying to save the trees in front of Brooks Park, Brooks Library. It's the same thing, process. There's $24,000 that will be spent shortly to engineer laying the bricks over concrete in front of the library. I used to be a builder. In the old days, just you knew how to do that stuff. You didn't need to spend $24,000 to be told. And then, of course, there's buying trees to plant. There are 2 mature trees there, look beautiful, and I guess they want to cut them down and create something that'll grow for my grandchildren. I just don't buy it. It just doesn't seem right. But the process was upside down. The selectmen never sent this project for the trees to the Harwich Conservation, the commission, district commission, to vet it and express their sympathy or a denial. So it's coming after the game, but it's also coming after the $24,000 is spent, and that's the part I just don't get. The money could go to Brooks Academy. I'm talking in these 2 instances, $90,000. It just doesn't make sense. And I won't say any more to you. That's about it. But thank you for your time.
All righty.
Thanks.
Thank you for the information.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I feel I need to clarify a statement or two, and I also have a question, a simple question for clarification. If you think it's appropriate for me to make a clarifying statement about what the Conservation Commission has done and has not done.
This discussion that we're having has nothing to do with CPC. Just so you understand that, in either case, there's a long explanation for what we have done in the past with Brooks Academy. We're not paying for, we don't pay for landscape whatsoever. That's not in our charge.
It's up to you.
John, go ahead, because that's conservation, you're the chair.
I am the representative of the Conservation Commission on the Community Preservation Committee. And you came to us last night and you repeated again a statement that you feel the Conservation Commission has, by default, approved something that is very ill-defined at this point that might happen around Island Pond. And the Conservation Commission has done no such thing. The Conservation Commission only wrote a letter to the Community Preservation Committee saying it supported the application for funding to look into the possibility of doing that. That is all that has happened, and I feel I have to say that because you're giving the public a different idea of what's happened, and that's not what happened. I also have a simple question for you, just for my information. You said you purchased property out there without defining what you meant by out there. I'd just like to know the property that you're saying connects you in some way to this case. Is it the actual property where this is being proposed to be done, or is it somewhere else?
Thanks for the question. I'm glad you asked. May I go back?
I'm getting very uncomfortable
Okay,
with this
all right.
discussion on both ends, because
We own the land.
that should go in front of the Conservation Commission. That's where this discussion belongs. So, we're gonna move along now.
I encourage you to read the minutes from the Cemetery Commission about the unanimous approval from the Conservation Commission.
All right, thank you for your time. All right, next, approval of the minutes for November 14th, we're gonna delay until next week. That takes care of that. And I have an informational for the board before we get into the applications. I spoke to the chairwoman of the Board of Selectmen yesterday afternoon, in fact, and it was the issue about the grant agreement with the trust. I reminded her that she was in the room with myself, administration, the town attorneys, and when we set up the article to go before town meeting, the language for the 3-year rescinding process was removed. And I said to her that I didn't know what grant agreement was being discussed by the board, but that's in the board's court to figure out. It has nothing to do with us. We did our due diligence. There may have been a lack of communication. There had to be a follow-up on that. So that's just for this board. The second thing for this board is our next meeting, we are going to discuss and vote on whether the CPC wants to reduce the amount of money we get from the levy, from the 3% tax levy, if we want to reduce that in any way, shape, or form. I was asked to put it before the board, and I will put that. There's no discussion on it tonight. It'll be an agenda item for our next meeting. So it'll give you some time to gather your thoughts and think about what's going on. Okay, moving on. Under new business, we were supposed to have the finance, we were supposed to talk about the financials tonight with the client that's been hired by the Board of Selectmen to true up the numbers of the CPC. She couldn't make it to tonight's meeting. she will be at the next meeting. And what she's looking from the board is just any concerns of any of the board members. So something else to keep in mind. That takes care of that. Okay, now we're on to project presentations for 2024, 2025. CPA funding requests. We're going to start with HP1, the North Harwich Gravestone Preservation Project. The applicant's name, please.
It's the Harwich Cemetery Commissioners, and I'm Robin Kelly, the administrator. So I handed you all out kind of an outline of what I'm going on. The requested amount is $37,015. The North Harwich Cemetery has 16 foundations that will need to be reset, 7 gravestones that have clean breaks, 9 gravestones that are broken in 2 places, 4 gravestones that are broken in 3 places, 2 have 4 or more broken pieces, and 5 will have to have pins removed, as when the pins get water in there and the moisture gets in there and they freeze, it'll crack the stone. I don't know if you've ever been to a cemetery and seen how it separates from the pin. So 62 current monuments require either straightening or are in danger of falling or breaking. So I have put in a few pictures. One's of James Baker. His death was in 1861. His stone is in 4 separate pieces currently. William Ryder, he died in 1845. His is in 2 pieces. It's actually in pretty good condition because it was kind of buried. So we kind of moved it out. So the writing on the stone looks fabulous, actually. The historic gravestone repair, we have 6 Revolutionary War soldiers that are buried in the cemetery. There are 62 current, so I put in there all of the, I listed every single one of the monuments that are gonna be repaired by name, if you guys wanna look at those. And I have the broken ones listed as well. The condition assessment, these graves, many are centuries old and are in need of regular assessment to determine their condition. It includes evaluating their structural integrity of the stones, the extent of their weathering, and signs of damage. The earliest stone in the cemetery is 241 years old. The cemetery has not had any gravestone conservation or preservation done to it, and it's pretty much is in need of repair. So we've had a lot of people going to this cemetery recently. There was a Ghost and Lantern Tour on October 19th and 25th of this past year from the Harwich Historical Society. There's just a lot more foot traffic in there. So I hope you guys will support this. We went to the Historic Commission. They went over this application with it, and they endorsed it moving forward to CPC. Do you have any questions?
Okay, all set.
Yeah.
All right, I'll open it up to the board. Mary?
No comments from me. What Robin said, came before the board was unanimously in support of the gravestone preservation for North Harwich.
Awesome.
I had no questions, thanks.
Kathy?
Couple things. One, this is the cemetery you brought to us last year with the rails
Nope.
the year before?
No, this isn't
This is the North Harwich
North
Cemetery.
Harwich, yeah.
Yeah. So didn't you come to us, was it last
We
year?
wanted to put rails up, but it
You
didn't,
wanted to replace the
Yeah,
rail
yeah.
system,
correct.
right, okay,
So we're actually gonna plant trees in the back part of it now.
okay.
So we do have a tree fund that we got, so we are looking at, I've been working with Alan Hall. His family is very vested in this cemetery, And we are looking at putting like, because it abuts another construction kind of a company that could eventually put all of their construction trucks right up to the edge of where the cemetery is. So we figured we'd probably do a wall of Lilian cypresses there. We moved some of the railings that were around to different locations to try to,
It looks better.
Yeah.
I looked at it today. It
Yeah.
looks much better
Yeah.
than it did last year.
Yeah.
Whatever. One thing, it would be nice to have an address on the application
Okay.
for the cemetery.
okay.
I had to look it up because I wasn't sure
Sorry.
which one it was.
I
And.
apologize for that.
Okay, and then, in your write-up, you say a couple of times how this is part of an inventory and project assessing for the cemetery commission. So how far along are you guys in that process? Because,
We
we've
only-
done a number of these so
We only
far.
have 2 more to do after this one.
Okay,
Yeah, so we're pretty far along. It's been, and more people are doing gravestone conservation now, which, as you notice, the prices are getting cheaper. I mean, when we first started doing them, they were very expensive, so luckily for us, more people are now doing it, and it's becoming more feasible.
is this a quote from the same company that did the one at the Methodist cemetery?
No,
Oh, different,
this is a
okay,
new, this is a new.
okay, all right, thanks.
How's that, Kathy? John?
Just one question. You just mentioned, Robin, that construction outfit next door could be putting their stuff right up against your
So,
property. I'm looking at the satellite image of that area, and there's a pretty broad forested area between the cemetery
yeah,
and
that's owned by Robert Auer,
all that
all
forested
that
area?
forested area.
I see, okay.
So, the concern is down the line, if they ever wanted to expand, or they could sell it off to something else. We probably want to put something up there that actually makes the cemetery kind of enclosed, so it stays warmer, you know what I'm saying? You don't want to have construction material right up against the edge, so,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
How's that, John? Okay, Robin, one question. When you're talking about the other 2 cemeteries that you haven't dealt with yet, is one of those on Queen Anne?
No, that one's been completely done,
That's been completely
completely
finished.
done. Yeah.
Where are the other 2?
So it's Island Pond and Evergreen are the 2 that have not had any gravestone restoration in it yet. We've done work ourselves in there. The Cemetery Commission has done certain stones that have tipped over that we had to do because they were dangerous, but we haven't done a restoration project in there. Evergreen, you guys did all of the posts and rails, do you remember that one?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But we've not done a gravestone conservation.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from the board?
Just a note,
Kathy.
there's a couple rails down at the Evergreen.
Yeah.
I noticed today, yeah.
They start to get loose.
All righty. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Do I stay for the next one?
Yep, go ahead. You've got the floor, young lady.
So the next one is the trailing boardwalk design and permitting at the Cedar Swamp at Island Pond. BSC Group, many years ago, were hired by, I believe, the conservation, right here. They were hired by to develop a land stewardship report and conservation of the owned properties. Each report was divided into specific parcels. But they did an extensive, I should have brought the book, it's about this thick, on everything that's in Island Pond area, around the cemetery, all through the walking trails, all the way up, I think past the Lavender Farm, if I'm not mistaken. But they inventoried every tree, types of trees, types of animals, all the wetlands in there. They did all the delineation reports for pretty much everything in there. This report was done in like the early, it's about 15 years old. I could bring it in if you guys want to see it. In the end of that, BSC Group is also a member of my New England Cemetery Association, and the guy that did this report, I have known him, Dave Crispin, for a long time. In the report, they suggested at that point that we do a raised platform walking trail in there to, in some of the sites. to protect some of the wildlife. And I could get you guys a list of all of that if you want a copy of it. I think it's online, I think it's on the conservation page. I think Amy is the one who originally gave it to me. So, it was done originally through the Conservation Department. So, I had spoken to him, I reached out to him about actually making a quote for what he thought would be required to do such a raised platform walking trail. And so he would talk to me about the civil engineering and environmental services that they would have to provide in order for this project to move forward. Initially, I wanted it to come right out from the bottom of where our parking area is at the Marceline Arboretum and go straight across. After talking with Amy, she thought that the Cedar Swamp was a little bit further to the north section, and drew it on a map for me, which is in this, let's see if we can flip to that. Yeah, if you flip to the proposed area page, it has this map on it. It has a picture of Island Pond Cemetery, and then it has a picture of the area where Amy typed a map up for me on the top. So, looks like this, I don't know if any of you guys have that. So in talking to Amy about it, she thought that one of the parcels that is connected in this area could have a title issue. So I went down and I talked to Carly, and so she added this parcel to Article number 39 of the Assessing Department for this year's town meeting to make sure that the title was cleared, if that's the parcel he decides he wants to use. Either way, they're gonna clear the title. Either it's gonna go to the Conservation Trust, or whatever. You gonna pull it up, John? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I'm very confused.
Yeah. Do you have a question?
Yeah, can I just get
okay.
some clarification?
Yeah.
So, what you're showing us on the map here, on this particular page,
Yeah.
the circled area where Amy is now saying is the area with the cedars.
Amy says that as.
That's very different from where your proposed boardwalk is.
Correct.
And is that very different from what you went before conservation with?
No, because they both, I had this for them as well. This
Okay.
was the exact same presentation I gave to them is what I'm
Okay.
giving to you right now.
All right,
So, and
But
Amy
but-
talked about that.
okay, but it is it different from what you originally
Initially.
proposed to the group that potentially may do the engineering survey?
No, they wanted me to, they wanted me, like he's talking about, they wanted me to encompass further. But I told them, no, I didn't want to go that far. I wanted just to get up to the pond, because the thing is when you're in Island Pond and you try to look, when you're in Island Pond Cemetery, and you try to look at Island Pond, you can't even see it. The vegetation is so thick that the only time of year you can see it is when all of the leaves have dropped. And then you can see it. You can walk on those, yeah, you can walk on the trail system if you go down there, and sometimes it's really wet to get to the pond, and there are trails already that exist there. I walked it with Amy, and I walked it with another lady that came down from the state that was looking for some rare bird in there. That a whole bunch of people came down, and we did a walk in there this past summer, but the proposed walking trail is where he is going to find where the Cedar Swamp would be most accessible. So I don't know, Kathy, I am not an expert on this stuff. So that's why I wanted the BSC group, who's already been in there and knows a lot about this information, to go in there and figure out where they think it could be proposed. They would then make a proposed map, which then they would bring back. And part of their presentation is to go back to the Conservation Department for their approval to see if they would be, before they would move forward. Because you won't know where it's gonna go until they go in there and survey it and look at it. Nobody, you can't just say, all right, we'll just draw a line here, this is where we think it's gonna go. They literally have to go in there, walk where the existing pathway is and see if that would work. And it might work. There's actually a trail right now, if you go down there, you can walk on it. And it runs along the side, so if you came down, you went into Island Pond, where my map is, where the yellow line is, if you walk up closer to where the red line is, you can walk right straight through on that path. There's a path right there. And it goes right up to the pond. So you can walk straight through there. It's just very thick, and you're ducking through things, and it's starting to get overgrown, and no one's maintaining it. So right now, there is a path, though, and you can walk it.
Are you all set?
You could do a
Oh, that
field
was,
trip.
I have plenty of questions. That
Yeah,
was
I-
just that.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
just that.
Again, Robin, I'm confused. Where you have this yellow,
Yeah.
where you have this yellow line,
Is
I see,
where- is
I see
where-
the break-off point with the red, so I figure that's the,
That is part of one of the parcels.
but just above the yellow line, now,
Mm-hmm.
this is my eyesight.
Yeah?
Is that water or is that greeny, greenage?
No, that's wetlands. So when the,
That's wetlands.
yeah, so they're all, it's pretty much all, most of this area is wetland. See where it's lighter color? And then it's darker color? This is not a great map to show that.
No, it's not.
And it's very small, I apologize. So if you want to, I can come back with a better map.
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure
More
you guys.
defined, better
you guys, I'm
defined.
sure you have more questions, I don't mind coming back.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
We'll continue with the board. I'm just, that's my curious. Trying to delineate what the actual line is.
Right.
All right, open it up to the board. John?
I don't have any questions. I have a better map here, but I don't know if you want to, I mean,
We'll let her do a due diligence, come back with a map for
I don't,
all
I
of us.
don't have,
Yeah.
any questions.
Okay, Marcy?
I just think with more information, and as everyone mentioned, a more clearer map,
Yeah,
I think
I
that would
can
be good.
definitely bring that back.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Marcy. Kathy?
Okay, so we're talking about a 7-acre kind of area here altogether.
This long thing in the front section is 7 acres. It's not gonna be 7 acres, the walking path.
Well, no, of course not. And how do people currently access this particular spot that you're talking about?
So see the white line? That's an actual physical road that comes
Comes up
right
from the
off the
bottom.
bike trail, and you can walk that anytime.
So do you get there from the bike trail?
You can get there from the bike trail.
Is that the only way to get there? You have to be on
There-
the bike trail to get
There's
there?
an actual road that connects that, and
But-
I think it goes right up to you guys, right? Yeah. Yeah.
It's our driveway when we got our.
It's a road.
It's a
So-
road for cars?
Amy drives on it all the time. I just
Okay.
think that people.
That's a
Okay.
cart path.
It's our legal driveway.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a
All
cart
right.
path.
So, has there been, like a demand for walking amongst the cedars?
You should see how many people walk around in here. It is very.
Well, I'm sure there's lots of people that walk there, but,
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about, putting a boardwalk, in a undisturbed area.
Right.
And I'm just wondering, has there been any kind of outreach to the community that says, we want this? I mean, we're talking 60,000 just for the engineering and permitting. Do you have any idea what the cost would be for a boardwalk that, as you said, could be between 800 and 2,000 feet long, which is a huge difference?
Yep. I could get quote, I know that the the one that's down Cape, they just redid their entire thing over. They just did the whole thing. So I could get their exact numbers. If you want me to get that, I can bring that the next time I come as well.
Well, I mean, I just think it would be kind of important to kind of have an
So there is-
idea.
There's actually 15 different grants out that are right now that I've been reading and working with the county for, because when I went and talked to the Conservation Trust people, they were like, Robin, you're gonna have to get a grant to pay for this because it's gonna get expensive. This is not gonna be a cheap project if it goes forward. So he recommended that I start doing research. So I called the county. I used to deal with Bobby up there, so now I have a new lady that I deal with for grant writing. So she sent me all of the new updated municipal grants for environmental education or this type of work. So I've been working with her to sort through them, ones that we could apply for this type of a project. So I would not come back to you guys for the full amount to build this thing. What I would do is work with a grant writer to do a grant for the actual construction of this project.
And my question about the public sort of input on this, did you answer that?
So
wasn't-
I actually reached out to I've really only been reaching out to the school districts to talk to them. They do make trips from the elementary school to go to take their kids to the White Cedar Swamps as well as the middle school. And I talked to the Lighthouse Charter School students. So the students would love to have it. I did speak to some of my garden club members, and I've talked to a couple other people that are interested in it as well. But if you'd like to, I could have a meeting where I discuss this and see if people want more opportunity.
Well, I think it would be,
Yeah.
you know, in your best interest to see if there is any kind of public support for, you know, building some kind of a structure like this before we invest $60,000 into a permitting. I mean,
Yeah,
put the
I
cart
agree.
before the
So, I
horse,
mean,
so.
I don't mind coming back to you guys. You just, I'll bring a new map. I'll find out what it cost for them to redo their raised platform, because I know they redid almost all of it. Actually, just put out a new video. I don't know if any of you guys have seen it, because it was on Facebook. And it shows they did an aerial view of the whole walking path of theirs, and it came out amazing. Really did. It really did. And then I will reach out with my commission. We have a meeting next Thursday, and I'll ask them about maybe doing a public meeting to see if we can get people, to see if we, about interest.
I'm good.
I'll second. Mary?
So Robin, my question is, what's the delineation of who's got custody and control of what parcels? Because does the cemetery have control of the land all the way up to Island Pond?
So we have all of Island Pond and all of the 7 acres that are on the front end with, see where my yellow line is?
I see where the yellow line is.
That whole parcel that goes all the way to the left.
So like 7/8 of the pond
Yeah,
is under the custody and control of the cemetery commission,
yes,
as opposed to the board of selectmen.
yes.
Okay,
That's the Marceline Arboretum.
all right. I have to say, to be honest, I'm feeling like this is a little premature.
Yep.
And I'm not sure that we can use recreation funds to do the environmental study or the engineering. I tend to think it might have to be administrative funds. Just looking to my colleagues on some of that.
For that article.
Because it's just, it seems like it's not necessarily gonna, it might not get there, if it was, to me, it strikes me similar to doing clearing title ahead of a project. It just seems like it might be more in line with administrative funding rather than recreation funding. And that being said, our administrative funds are pretty limited in how much we can spend in that. So $60,000 is a lot of administrative funds to look at. So I would need clarification from council as to whether they felt this would come under CPC recreation.
You're gonna love this, that $50,000 that town meeting advanced to do this work, 30,000 was used and the article was closed out. So the question was, where did the $20,000 go?
Well, if it was CPC
So
funds,
we
it needs
asked
to go
them
back to
anyway.
CPC.
Well,
No,
they're in the
it's
process
fine.
of looking for them.
I mean,
So-
I'm just saying, those are my.
I'm
kind of-
sorry, can't make this stuff.
No.
Those are my kind of concerns with this. To me, it's just, it's a lot of money for a preliminary engineering study, where we don't know whether,
What would
to
like
Kathy's point, what the end cost might be. whether you're gonna have the funds, but, yeah, thank you for clarifying that. I did not realize the cemetery owned that whole parcel. of Island Pond.
Dave?
You all said, Mary.
I am, thank you.
One question for you.
Yep.
You're talking about grant funding.
Yeah, so I actually
How
am.
how about design and permitting? Do they have grant funding
We
for that
do.
too?
So I'm actually trying to actually get this funded through a grant anyway. So if it does go through, I was gonna pull it from you guys anyways. So, I'm still gonna be, but I still think it's important that I come before you and get all these questions, because it's important for me to know, the process and anything that I need to do before. So it actually helps me when I come to here and people question the project, because it makes the project better. So as far as I'm concerned, this isn't a waste of time for me. This is important to get this process moving forward. But, so I appreciate all of your input. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Robin.
Thanks, Robin.
Kathy,
John wanted to say something.
go ahead, Jim.
Can I clarify at least the status of the lots that are impacted by this?
Go ahead.
Because the lot that contains most of Island Pond itself, the
Right.
pond, not the cemetery, and the southern part of the Island Pond Trail there, the walking trail, that is town-owned property in the care and custody of the Conservation Department or Commission. Then there's a line, a lot line that goes through like the north section of Island Pond, and there are 3 lots to the north where the most likely place for a trail that wouldn't go right into the pond, those, to my knowledge, are owners unknown.
Right.
And those are the ones where some determination would have to be made about who owns the property.
So I'm confused.
We all know how long it's taking for owners
Yeah.
unknown properties to go anywhere.
Right,
Okay, so you're talking, the rate things have been going,
yeah.
5 to 10 years.
Well, we can see.
So this could be very premature.
Right, right.
Mary.
I was just confused. I was now more confused.
So, yeah, so when we went to town meeting, to get that parcel transferred to care and custody of the Cemetery Commission.
Which parcel?
The 7 acres that you just,
The one that is currently care and custody of Conservation Commission.
supposed to be under cemetery. But I can bring, I
That's a
can,
discussion for
I
your
can bring that
board.
to you, John, though.
That's a discussion for your board.
All right.
Okay.
I don't know about that, but it might be true.
Anything else from any of the board members? Robin, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Have a great
Robin.
night.
Okay, next, the Harwich Affordable Trust,
Affordable Housing Trust.
Housing Trust.
I don't want to be alone. And just for clarification, I did most of this meeting, and so we're legal.
Okay,
We can all-
thank you.
We can all talk.
Thank you, Larry. You've got the floor. Ed, please identify yourselves.
Larry Ballantyne, Chair of the Affordable Housing Trust, Claudia Williams, member, and Brendan Lowney, a member. 2 members could not make it, Julie Kennedy and Bob Spencer could not make it tonight. But we have a great committee, as I heard one of the select board saying, we're a fully engaged committee, which I hope that would apply to most committees. We'll take that as a compliment. Thanks for hearing our application. I've given you a lot of material, so I'll primarily leave it for questions, but just a few comments. I want to thank you, and I'm sure as a committee, I want to thank you very much for your support you've given us in the past. Just to very briefly give you an idea of what we've been up to this past year, and part of this I've given to you before, but we're helping to fund 3 apartments at 203 Bank Street, which is old fire station, that they're going to report to us, give an update on our Tuesday meeting, but my understanding is, when I drive by, it looks like that part of the project's going great. The renovation of the cranberry bog is, in the wetlands, taking a little longer in the parking lot. So that's 3 apartments, 3 one-bedroom apartments, which will add to our housing list, our subsidized housing list, which we always refer to as a SHI list. We've also helped fund, on the old fire station, we've funding that at the tune of $476,000 for the 3 one-bedroom apartments. We've helping to fund 5 Belknap's Road, the West High School that John Kerry's renovating. That he's working on. We're funding 3 apartments. 2 of those are 1-bedroom, one's a 2-bedroom apartment, for a total of $605,000. He's also on the old school. This is going to be a new building. On the high school itself, he's building 7 apartments. So it'll be 10 in total. And interesting enough, the way the system works in the government is that we then get credit for 10 affordable housing units on the SHI list. And that comes back to the part that if you build affordable housing, you can, 20% or so has to be affordable, so it falls in line with that thinking. And that's progressing well. He hopes to have those apartments ready this early summer. We're moving ahead on the Marsh Line, 456 Queen Anne Road property. I'll eventually get the name right. And we've had proposals from 3 proposals. We awarded that to Penrose. We're in the process now of drafting and completing a land lease agreement and a ground lease agreement. I checked today, and I'm hoping we'll get that in the next couple weeks. I've been very frustrated because it's taken longer than I hoped. I hope it'll be done by now, because that starts the process, as we all know, of getting a letter of eligibility, then getting it to the zoning board so we can move ahead on the project. So that's been a lot of our activity. Also, all of our trust funds approved $150,000 for a rental assistance program. I checked, I think the last time I was before this committee, there's some concern whether there were enough people interested in that to make it worthwhile. This just started a couple weeks ago, and I checked with the Homeless Prevention Council, which Claudia's been our main spokesman for, yesterday, and they have 7 applications already. People who they think are qualified and need help. And I'm told that that's, I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's ahead of other towns in terms of getting responses of people in need going forward. So that's been a lot of our work in this past year. We also are trying to look at creative ways we can help people in housing as we go forward. This year, as you know in the packet, we're asking for $500,000 to maintain and replenish our trust fund, and $250,000 to increase and continue our rental assistance program, because I think there's a need there. The item that comes of most interest to me at the moment on the maintaining our trust fund, as you will, is we will require some seed money in the 456 Queen Anne, I'm still struggling saying that, Queen Anne property as that is developed, because my understanding is most state grants that you have to demonstrate that the town is showing, at least initially, some financial support. And we have some of that, of course, because we own the land. And our negotiations now is how much if we front that, how much of that do we get back in terms of long-term rental payments that they want to take up front to make their books look better. So, but we may need that in the need that in our packet to be sure that moves forward. I wanted to keep this short. We, just one other comment is, we still have money coming in from the rental, what do you call it, rental tax.
The short-term rental tax.
Short-term rental, thank you. Short-term rental tax, that's there, and I'm guaranteed it's there. But it takes another town vote to move that from that fund to the trust. I talked to our town administrator today, reminded him he's promised that that will be an article next town meeting, so we can move that transfer. And that's my, any other comments, Claudia or Brendan? You're gonna let me hang out?
Thank you, yeah.
We're ready for questions then.
Okay, well, I'm going to start with what you just said. Have you contacted yourself, has the board contacted legal to ask why it has to be a town meeting vote to move that money when it was approved by town meeting?
Well, I've had that discussion because if I understand that what we did at town meetings, the short answer is yes, we've had that discussion. The one town meeting is required to move the funds into into a trust account. And then Mary's gonna answer this because she knows. Then we have to have another town meeting to move it from the trust account into ours, so it takes 2 votes. Mary?
I'm guessing it's a receipts reserved for appropriation account, so when the revenue comes in, then it's subject to future appropriation,
Yeah, okay.
even though it's designated as opposed to like an enterprise fund or something else.
Okay, so it has absolutely nothing to do with certified cash.
I don't think it has anything to do
No, I don't think so.
with that
Okay,
at all.
all right. All right, so I'm going to open this up to the board. Marcy, would you like to start, please?
Yes, I just had a question regarding the 3 apartments on Bank Street. I did drive by, they look really nice. So are you still vetting as far as applicants? Is there an application? What is that process right now?
We haven't started that yet. The Fire Association they're hiring an outside consultant to do the lottery and do the entire process that you need to do. And that will start, I assume, it hasn't, as far as I know, it hasn't started yet, but will, I assume shortly.
So you're anticipating like the end of this year, before the end of the year, or?
Or before the end of the year. I think by midsummer. Initially, they promised us to be done at the beginning of the summer, but my understanding is they're having taking longer to do the parking lot than they thought. But then they're having help doing that vetting and lottery system that's required.
Okay, thank you. No
Well said,
further
Liz.
questions, yeah.
John?
Yeah, I have one question about demographics here. You state somewhere in here that based on some 6,000 and change single-family residences, I think is what it says, in Harwich, the currently we're at almost 5%, satisfying the 10% affordable housing. But looking at other information about the number of housing units in Harwich, I see much bigger numbers. Like, looking on the Cape Cod Commission's website, they say 10,527 housing units in Harwich. So which one of these numbers should we actually be paying attention to? Because the 10,000 number makes it seem like we're a lot further away from hitting the 10%.
I don't have an answer for that. The numbers I gave you are what's come out of our housing production plan, the draft. It's in their numbers they have. And my understanding is that, I don't know that. I've always, I don't have an answer for that. My understanding is, based on that information, we're at 5.4% of the, reaching the 10%. We actually lost a few percent from the previous, because we had houses built, more market-based houses, so the percent's gone down.
And
But
the
Brandon,
census, too.
in the census. But I don't know who's right. I haven't dug into that more than what's published in our plan.
So I think you use the qualifier full-time residences in Harwich. That's a very big difference between 6,000 and 10,000. So is that difference about 40% of the homes in Harwich actually not being full-time
I'd
occupied?
have to check into that and get
And
back to you. but
why
yeah, you're
would
right,
we
we're about
be using
40.
the smaller number rather than the bigger number to determine how close we are to hitting the 10%? I mean, it sounds better when you use a smaller number, but is that really the right number to use?
I'd have to clarify that for you. I don't.
I'd appreciate a clarification, thank you.
Just from the census, I can maybe help year-round housing, give me 1 second. I'll get that in 1 second.
Could you speak up, please?
Yes, I will. In Harwich, so the year-round housing is 6,581, and there's 328 units right now. From the 2020 census, that leaves us at 4.98%. That is the number from my understanding.
So
But that doesn't answer your question, whether
Yeah.
it's
It
6,000
does.
or 10,000.
does not, and in my view, the fact that there are so many not fully occupied homes in Harwich, like the rest of Cape Cod, is part of the reason we're having such a hard time. And, anyway, thank you,
We'll work on getting an answer on that.
thank you.
All right, thank you. All set, John.
All set.
Mary?
So I just want to say that this is exactly what the trust was there for. It looks like you're making progress, and we're finally like starting to build and get the numbers. So to me, 13 units in the last calendar year or over the next couple of months is a big deal. Like, it's more progress than we've seen in the past, and it just means that, you know, you're finally starting down the road. To me, I think the purpose of the trust was for the trust to have the money and for the trust to make the trustees to make the decision on how to shepherd that money and where to use it. So from my perspective, I wouldn't see having any restrictions on 500 versus 250 for, for a rental assistance program. That, to me, should be the trustee's role in deciding how you spend your money to best increase the number of affordable units in the town. That was the reason, that's a reason behind having a separate trust, and it's a reason behind you folks having the money to be able to take action without having to wait a year for a town meeting. So have always been and am still in favor of the trust being able to have the funding to do those things. So, no questions, just comments.
Okay, Mary, thank you. Kathy?
Yeah, so total revenue since 2018, since the trust was formed, is $3,286,256. And so how many units have we added to the shy list as of right now for our $3,286,256?
Zero.
Zero. And how many have we lost? Have we lost some that have been on the shy list also this past year?
Right, from the census happening in 2020, we did.
Okay, and how many did we lose?
We didn't lose any units, but it gets adjusted, the percent went down, but the units stayed at 328.
Okay, because weren't there some that were,
There were a
the
couple
deed
on
thing,
first-
restrictions were coming off, and we had to negotiate, and I don't know what happened with those.
Go ahead.
It was the Davenport properties, I believe. I'm not too sure.
I think there was also some pine,
But
I
those
know.
didn't,
right,
Those
I
are
think
still-
they stayed.
they stayed.
They stayed. That's a good point. Some of the Pine Oaks properties, some of those have come off, and the question was how do they maintain them? And that was, I know we had a discussion last year on the select board on what to do with that. But my understanding is a step away now, that those that maintain it are still on the shy list. But, still subsidized inventory. So we're just now building forward on this. Our biggest, as the 13 is good, our biggest play will be on the 456 Greenland Road.
Right.
from the next line.
Right. And again, on the, sort of the income statement, I don't see the assets again, in terms of the land assets that are, available to you for disposition, correct?
You're correct, yes. And We do have, and Brenda's probably more returned to that, and we have, in fact, part of our discussion coming up on Tuesday will be, one of those assets is worthwhile is keeping or should we sell it, earn some funds.
Mhm.
But I don't have that in front of me, you're asking, we can get the tax assessment goals, get a list of that, and I can bring that back to you.
Yeah, other than the assessed values, we've not had any of the properties appraised yet.
Right, right, okay. No, I'm just saying, I mean, it should be on the balance sheet, don't you think? That you have this at your,
Yeah, I don't argue that, just,
okay,
and more looking at P and L part of that.
I guess for assets, but not so much as operating funds, but we could add it if you like. So you can
Okay.
see the assessed
there, you said
value.
that the last time too, so,
I'm sorry.
just saying,
I get that,
okay,
It's too good for me.
I know. All right, can we talk about the Queen Anne Road site for just a quick second?
Sure can.
So, the first phase, or this group of buildings that were in the description and everything like that, is that just phase one? Is that half the property? Or is that all the property?
Well, okay, I can very quickly. There's about 13 acres to the entire property. Well, the part we're developing is about half of that. The other half we have made no decision on yet. There's possibilities we might, from leaving it vacant, to have some more open space, to building some housing units that are purchased rather than for rent, and if we're doing the rent. So we decided to break it up and focus on the 7 acres that we have now, and then come back with a decision on the other half, once this is done.
Okay, so it is just a phase one and it's half.
Phase 1, we haven't made, yeah.
Okay. One thing I noted when I looked at the schematics and everything was there doesn't seem to be a ton of parking, or maybe it just wasn't shown on the pictures.
I'm hoping it wasn't shown on the picture, because we're talking about it, seems to be sufficient parking.
Okay. Okay, because it really, there was a lot of green space in the middle, potential green space, you know, some,
But then there's parking, isn't there parking all the way around?
yeah, but it didn't look like a ton, and it looked like it was street parking, like, which, it just didn't look like there was a ton of parking. I'm sure that there are certain numbers that you have to meet.
Yes,
Right, they're required.
along with,
Okay, so I was just wondering where all the parking was gonna be. 'Cause it didn't really show any other parking areas on the maps.
Let me see if I can get a different picture of that.
Okay,
Including handicap parking, correct?
Well, you have to do that.
yeah, yeah. And then just a quick question about the West Harwich housing thing that you guys funded. I understand that, 3 units would be added to the shy thing, and that it's the possibility that it'll count as 10.
Yeah.
Okay, how is that, and I'm sure that's a regulation kind of thing or whatever, but how is that right? In that we're not really adding an additional 7 affordable housing units?
I don't know, except that if you go back and you started a new project, you're required to have, whatever it is, Mary, maybe you know, there's like 20.
All I know is that that's the way it works.
25% is the way it works.
It's the way it works, but it doesn't help the
And
town.
then you get the credit for it all. Well, it doesn't for affordable, but it's sure nice to have some market-based housing there too. You need both.
Of course.
Makes it attractive for developers to get some funding to actually commit to at least 25%. If you hit the 25% mark, you'll get the funding for it, so.
Okay, all right,
And that really falls when you're doing a big 40B.
right, I understand that.
What Mr. John Perry's doing, it's a smaller project, even though he's private, and it's not a 40B.
Right,
He will still qualify because 25% of the units
okay,
are already out of the 10.
okay, all right,
So even though it's in a separate building, all the units will qualify. So that's a
Okay.
good, yeah, be a good thing.
all right, I'm good.
Kathy, it's a question that one of our board members, one of our council members has raised too. We'll work with the system as it is.
Right, okay, I'm
Like I
good.
say, it's always been that way, even when I was doing it in the early 90s. I think that's what was always, 25%.
Okay.
So, I think it's changed.
I'm good for
You're done
now.
with the torture?
I am, for now.
Okay. All right, anything else from any other
They
member
love
of the
my
board?
questions, they love them.
John?
I have another question, and it's about Depot Street, you give, Depot Road, excuse me, you list 5 lots in town that you're considering, and Depot Road is, it's actually a couple of lots up there. But you sort of qualify it as having a couple of vernal pools. My question is, does that mean you're just not considering that land at all? Because the vernal pools, they're pretty large lots, and the vernal pools are sort of constrained in an area sort of toward the north end of the lot. I'm just curious what that means in your view about the status of that land for developing housing.
I mean, a large percentage of that, if you, it goes back to, I believe, the 2019 town meeting. There was restrictions put on that property. So you have your standard 60-foot rule on a vernal pool.
Yeah.
Wetlands usually 50, you have 100, you have a 60-foot rule for just any new foundation work. And then it was extended to 100 feet. Someone proposed to amend that on the floor, and it happened.
Rios did.
So, yes, well, no,
Yes,
well,
yes.
no,
Yeah, we did.
you sure?
Yeah, I'm positive. It was 11:15 at night. I'm positive.
Okay, I'll leave that one alone. Because I remember it differently,
Okay.
but we were all there, but I get it. But if I thought he was representing himself, but he was representing for,
Well, he's a member of Rios.
right.
But,
Yeah.
but John,
Either way, that doesn't really matter.
you already.
So the upper portions,
Well, you've got to speak up in front of the mic, please.
yeah, the upper portion of that property, so it's, there's a possibility, but we have not done any due diligence as far as any feasibility study on the property yet.
But the other part of your answer is that because of the 100-foot buffer, or whatever the defined buffers are there, that impinges too much on any developable land, that it would make it difficult to justify building something outside of those buffers.
I don't have the exact acreage, but I believe the top 4 or 5 acres are viable. But like I said, we haven't done a feasibility study to talk about access to the property off Queen Anne or Depot. So it really hasn't been done. We haven't really done that, like we did for Oak Street. Oak Street, we actually surveyed it, and we found all the wetlands and figured out what piece of that land is viable for building. So we haven't done that for any affordable housing yet.
Okay, thank you.
John, just to, that's actually a debate we have amongst ourselves, because we have some difference of opinion. I've been concerned that, not so much, I guess more outside of our committee ourselves, but yeah, some people, I've had people say, well, vernal pools there, you can't build there. As you know, you can if you protect the vernal pools, it's your suggestion. And they still help because they add land to the area, which will then meet the zoning requirements, even if they're open. So that's the discussion we need to have, and we probably need a little more information on. So we want to start that discussion, because our first job is to build houses, is to use it for affordable housing, but it makes sense to sell it. If it looks like money will do us more good elsewhere, then we want to consider that. You raise a good point, because people misunderstand what a vernal pool means. It means you have to protect the vernal pool, it doesn't mean you can't build anywhere you want.
But even to that point, at the town meeting, there wasn't a need to extend it, which is fine that it happened, but there wasn't a need to extend it because conservation already has the 50, 60, and the 100-foot rule in place.
We do.
Someone just wanted to amend it on the floor, and it happened. We got some land, and it was in the early stages of us, the land being given to us by the select board, so it was fine, but anyways.
All set, John.
Thank you, yes.
Okay, anything else
Answer
from,
your question exactly, but,
Yeah. Well, we haven't done a feasibility study yet, so until we do that, we don't really have a good answer. So it's either develop it or, RFP it or sell it.
Got it, thank you.
You got it.
all right, anything else from any member of the board? Hearing none, all set. Thank you very
Well,
much.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John, will you slant your microphone over a little bit? Is your screen, yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Should have clarified that it was J1.
All right, so the next one is the Cape Cod Regional Technical High School request.
Thank you.
There was a reason for the 100 foot.
I got a couple.
Okay, thank you.
To protect.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Because I have to put these with the 4 other projects that go out in town.
Okay, could you please identify yourselves, and you've got the floor.
Probably didn't stay till 11:15.
Go ahead.
My name is William Kunis. I'm here as an advocate proponent for the project in its entirety, and certainly here to support and work with the tech school with the requested of the school. I guess I'm on an advisory committee officially with them.
I'm Robert Sanborn. I'm the superintendent at Cape Cod Regional Technical High School. I've been there, I'm in my 16th year as the superintendent. I've been at the school for 31 years. And some of you may know that we built a new school back in 2020. We entered that new school, and I want to thank all the voters that supported us back in 2017. And during that time, they said we were building too big a school. We are now over capacity. We have a waiting list, over 100 students trying to get in. And one of the reasons for this project is to offer more students from our district, which is from Provincetown and Mashpee, access to vocational technical education. I do see that my slides are a little messed up here, and I don't know what happened there, but I'll do my best, but you do have a copy in front of you. It says the site is the classroom. And the site is at 374 Main Street. So I'm going to go right past the table of contents. A little bit about our school, which you have in front of you, but our new mission is educating hands and minds. And it's not only a access to vocational issue, it's also an equity issue for having more programming. And this site is perfect for that, for the programs that we're proposing, I believe. And that's why we are looking to expand. All right. So funding so far, we started with a $590,000 private donation, and we also got a $67,000 earmark in the state budget this past year, which has allowed us to engage with tie and bond. You've seen in my papers previously, and then in this presentation, we've gone through a master planning process, and now we're in schematic design with tie and bond as our civil engineering firm, and then Catalyst Architects out of Yarmouth for the facility that we're hoping to put on this property. We also were lucky to get $555,000 from the Mass Clean Energy Center, which allows for about $300,000 more for development in terms of capital. And then it also has some money for teacher. And then we got it's actually $1.25 million from the Executive Office of Education. Those grants were just received in the last couple of months. So that's where we are monetarily. The two programs are environmental science and veterinary science that we're trying to offer future students. We hope to open in September of '26 for our freshman class. I've already pushed that back from 25, and fundraising is what I'm doing quite often these days for this project. So those are the two programs that we're hoping to offer. But just this morning, we had the advisory committees for both of these programs. We've applied for what's known as Chapter 74 approval, which makes them 900-hour plus programs, 9 through 12. And we've got through the Part A process, and we met with our advisory committees as they're currently constituted, and I basically shared this presentation with them as well. You have in your packet, I won't go over it, this was prepared by Tie and Bond, what the existing conditions are on the property at 374 Main Street. From everything from the site to conclusions and hydrology and a lot of things I don't understand, quite frankly. So we're moving ahead in that way. Where is this? You probably already know, but in the top right, that is where our current campus is at 351 Pleasant Lake Avenue off of Route 124, now exit 82, used to be exit 10. And then about 3.6 miles away, if you go to the end of Queen Anne Road and take a left, Old Queen Anne, and take a left, you can get to 374 Main Street. It's up on the left-hand side. These are some pictures of the site as it currently is constituted. You'll see there's 3 cranberry bogs on this site. There's trails that are overgrown that we want. Obviously, I'll show better slides where the trails will come in. There's forest land. There's an irrigation pond. It's adjacent to Flax Pond, and there's a wetland area as well, which I started off by saying the site is the classroom. I think that's what dovetails so nicely with environmental technology as one of the programs being offered, with veterinary science being the other one. Some more site images. There's a Flax Pond, which is not on the property. It's adjacent. In the bottom left, you'll see a little wetland that is on the property, which will be another learning experience going down if we're lucky enough to see this project to fruition. And you see some more trails as well. So these are concepts, but you also start to see what the land would look like when developed, and all those white lines are trails. Would be trails in the end. I apologize for the building because the building looks different, and I have a slide later that will clarify that. It has 3 separate buildings there, but I'm proposing now, and I think that's what I gave to you in my application, but as we've been developing through schematic design, it has turned into one facility with both programs in it. You see those little, down the left-hand side, those are some just images to get a sense of what some of the outdoor gathering areas would be around the facility we're proposing. I heard earlier this evening about walkways and boardwalk type trails like you see up on Fort Hill and Eastham. Over time, we may be able to develop those things as part of the outdoor classroom, and I'll show you where that is proposed in a separate slide. These are future. We would hope to have a barn that got cut from one of our grants, and also greenhouses that would help with the environmental program in the case of the greenhouses and our existing horticulture program. So this not only is helping 2 new programs, but it also will help existing programs that we have. So these are just some images of what could be in the future. I'm not proposing animals on the property in short term, but as we develop the land and have the building up and the school up and running, that would be future phases. And this is the greenhouse area that I was talking about just a second ago. And then the forestry area is primarily to the back of the property, which is, you see there's trails running through there. I have a better slide with that as well. But also, the environmental technology program has a natural resource management component to it. There's 2 concentrations, environmental science and natural resource management. And we talked about that this morning at our school with some of the people on the advisory committee, and how the partnerships with the towns, Harwich in particular, with the natural resource departments. I see a lot of partnerships and co-op opportunities, internship opportunities for the students to benefit the students and the town and towns as we move forward once we're up and running. So those are just kind of inspirational images about this. So this is the plan as it currently constituted, and I hope you can see it. The white, you see now it's turned into one building. You see all the development that needs to happen from the road, from Main Street. We have to bring a road in. You see the circular driveway or one-way driveway, and you come back, you can turn around. That all has to be, everything you see needs to be developed. So, and then in the front, does this have a pointer or no?
Yeah, it should be in the center.
Center.
It's right here.
Oh, thank you. Oh, great. What'd I do?
You didn't close it by accident.
Okay.
One second.
Cyber Monday? It's the one that's got the illustrated. The third row on the end. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm not gonna press this. So in the front of the building, and there's a slide that'll show it better, is the back side of the building, okay? And that, does everybody know where I'm referring to? It's that white, okay? So the front entrance is in that notch in the back, and I have photos of her in a bit. But in the front, towards the bogs, or the back of the building, but towards the front of the property, coming off the building, is that outdoor classroom area that we're talking about. Those images of the boardwalks could possibly, it could be also gravel or sand, gravel type paths, but that's to be developed, and also budget conscious all the while. So there's a lot of work. I think I put some numbers in my application. In working with architects, estimators are working on finer numbers, but you see that this is upwards of $6 million project altogether. The reason for my relatively large ask. And I hope that the committee can see the benefits to the community for recreation, partnerships, community events over time, such as we have over at the existing school. So there is a small area within the facility as well, which I'll show you in a minute, for community gatherings inside the building as well. Okay. That's just a closer view of what I was just talking about. I probably should have put this slide up first, but you see those pathways in the outdoor classroom area that is still being developed by Catalyst and High and Bond. But you see the amount that needs to be developed beyond just the building that we're trying to put on the property. They've developed 3 different concepts so far of what it could look like. By no means are these finished products. We want to be very cognizant of blending in color and aesthetic-wise into the landscape. So that's the reason for the wood and the grayish tone, which I think match the kind of the pictures I showed you at the outset. But this is one concept. This is another concept, and a third concept. As I said, we haven't made any of these decisions. These were just presented to me in the last week. Okay? That's the building. And the last slide I had is just the layout of that building. So that's the floor plan of that white blob you saw in the back of the property. So I'm really hoping, I'm pretty sure that this is not under the auspices of this committee. I'm hoping that my application can be considered for developing the property that would accept this facility. So with that, I would open it up to questions.
Okay, I'm gonna lead off this question.
Yep.
How many towns are involved with your school?
There are 12 towns from Provincetown to Mashpee.
Are you asking from each one of those CPCs funding for this?
I have not done that to this point, but I'm very open to the idea. I think as I get further away from Harwich, I think it'll probably get a little more difficult. But I would be open to expanding this. This is the first application I put in, though.
Okay,
Right. For the town, other towns, yeah. So,
all right. Okay, open it up to the board. Mary?
Ready to go yet? I think echoing on what David said, I think it is important to try and get money. Some towns are on different cycles than we are. So there may still be some opportunities out there, within your timeline. And I think, you know, obviously some of this, I'm not sure whether, I don't think our funding can go necessarily towards some of the buildings. I
Right.
think it can go towards some of the open space and conservation projects. But, you know, I think it's a great concept. I mean, it's a fantastic opportunity to provide 2 additional, you know, sets of coursework for the community. I'm not sure what funding we'll have available this year, whether we will have the funds to meet the total ask. But, again, all the more reason to, you know, if it's gonna benefit the district, then, you know, hopefully some other communities can still put in. Is there any potential of getting additional funding through this year's budget cycle with the state?
We certainly are going to pursue that. Every year, we have an annual legislative breakfast. And we're watching some funds that could come available through the millionaire's tax that would be dedicated to education
Yeah.
and facility, vocational technical facility expansion. Not, right now, that is not in
Right.
stone, but we are watching that. We are also actively fundraising in the community.
And is any of it available for reimbursement from the state, or no,
No.
because it's vocational?
No.
Is it because it's vocational, or is it because of what it is?
It's just because we, like, the MSBA, maybe
Right.
you're thinking of, which we did for the building that we have now, we did not go through that program. And they wouldn't have entertained this, especially since they just,
Right, they just
yeah,
did the
they
building.
just did this one.
Understood. So we have
But to the point about the building versus the open space, I totally understand that. And I hope to have firmer numbers than I've given you thus far. And if that's okay with the committee, I will forward them when I get them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so, because I'm hoping to get those in the next several weeks to a month.
Nothing else for me
Well
right
said,
now.
Mary,
Yeah.
thank you. Marcia?
I think it's very ambitious. I think it looks great. I was just curious, like, where was this modeled after? Is there somewhere out in
Thank you.
Massachusetts?
That's a great, we did a lot of field trips. We went to Bristol Agricultural School in, I forget where that is, in Bristol County. And then we've gone to Upper Cape Tech by the bridge. And they have both these programs, environmental and vet. And actually 2 representatives from the school were at the meeting this morning. And they've been very instrumental in informing the design of the technical areas, we call them, or the shops, as they may be. So yeah, we've had a lot of help from our colleagues with regards to equipment that need to be in these programs. So yeah.
Thank you.
Well said, Marcia.
All set, thank you.
John?
Yeah, just one question, well, a couple of questions. One about the Upper Cape Technical School, which has been there since the 60s, I think.
Correct.
But you're saying you serve 12 towns, which is almost all the towns on the Cape.
Right.
So what do they serve, and how many students do they serve there, and why is that split seems very lopsided to me. Why is it that way?
Yeah, everybody asks that question. And they are Falmouth, Bourne, Wareham and Sandwich, and Marion, believe it or not, over the bridge. And then we're the other 12 towns on the Cape. And then the Cape and Islands have programs on the islands in their comprehensive high schools. And as you go, we have very similar populations to draw from in size. Because as you go, down Route 6, there's less population of students.
So is their student population similar, 650
They're actually
or some number like that?
Yeah, we're 682 right now, and I think we're going to be at about 700 come next year. They're over 900. And that's daytime students 9 through 12, but they also have an LPN program, which gets counted in that number. But I think they have about 800 9 through 12 students. So what they have done there is built facilities on the outskirts on their property,
I see.
and then renovated the inside of their building to accept more students. We used to be a little bigger than them as far as a student body, but they've been able to offer more academic space, which then allows them to take more students because they have the technical areas out in outbuildings.
Okay, so my other question is, early on, when Leo was contemplating this and the select board was talking about it, there were questions about the ability, based on how the land had been initially acquired by the town, the ability to change some of the configurations, to build new buildings. This is rather ambitious building you're talking about, and how does that fit into what a couple of years ago were considered to be pretty tight constraints on what could be done?
The reason where it's located, and there's still some hurdles to, I'm not discounting what you're saying, but we purposely put the facility where there were facilities in the past. So there was a home back there was a barn back there was a couple of outbuilding type things far from the road. So we are going to have to overcome that hurdle. So that's not insignificant, but we are working on that.
Is this gonna require legislation to
We're
resolve?
hoping that's not going to happen. But we're open to that if it needs to.
We've been in front of many attorneys and a lot of people looking at this before the actual intermunicipal agreement was signed. And it was determined that when the property was bought, it was bought, for lack of a better way of explaining it, in sections. And that some of it was bought with state funds, the then land bank monies, and then they attributed a small amount of just the town's capital to the area. That way there, when it was bought, it actually had a house on it and had a dwelling on it, which you could not at that time use land bank money for. So the area was carved out, and also as a leasee on the property for the last 25 years, there were areas that I could build barns and buildings, and we had animals. I've not been able to actually put my hands on a survey which actually has bounds of that area. But better heads than I have all sat down and looked at all the legal documents and have come up with this schematic and plan presented to the school. It's kind of makes it difficult in a sense because, as you can see by that plan that Bob put up, it shows the buildings way in the back. It adds immensely to the cost of the project, because if that building could have been built down on Main Street, which there's plenty of land there, there's plenty of frontage, but the arguments with the attorneys and the people, again, smarter than I, when they read the acquisition documents, was that was not been able to put a building there. Greenhouses, but greenhouses aren't considered buildings in the building code. So that's why this is ending up where it is, number one.
So where the house is, or has been historically, where this building is, that is a separate lot? Is
It
that?
wasn't a separate lot. It was purchased in the language under the taking of the property. It had to be separated out in the taking. There was a physical house right here. And this building about right here, right now, is a barn, and then all the land that way was carved out. And also on the center of the property, which is not on the thing here, is an existing Quonset hut. I don't know if I can go back one
Yeah, I
slide,
can.
I think it is. Might be a little better. Right here, there are existing buildings also, which are being used and have been used for the last 25 years for agricultural production. So when I originally leased the property, the restrictions were that my development, if you will, was gonna be in this area and up in this area over here. And, because that's where the house was. They subsequently took the house down, removed the house, and then again, that's where the barns and everything are located. And to answer your question, and I know it sounds like I'm not answering it, but it's the best way I can do it, there was never a survey done with actual bounds defining the areas. It was was more of just an agreement. And again, when they purchased the entire 33 acres, they did say portions of it located here and here are out of the Chapter 97 requirements because they had existing buildings and dwellings on them. And that's, through that language, they've determined that this is the area that Bob is going to be allowed to build and here. Be nice to have it here, but can't do that. So I hope that answers it. I know it's,
Well, it's similar to what I've heard in the past. I say it's similar to what I've heard in the past. It sounds like it still hasn't been resolved. So my question is, your ambition is to start the program a little less than 2 years from now.
Yes.
Are you taking into account, I mean, how realistic is that, given that you have some legal issues?
I've already pushed it back 1 year. So it was going to be 25 when we first started, but just working on the intermunicipal agreement took quite a while. So, and then fundraising, quite frankly, has been, we could see that we wouldn't even have the budget to start to be able to accept students in 25. So currently, our ambition, as you said, is to be open for exploratory for freshmen in September of 26.
Okay, thank you.
I'll set John. Thank you. Kathy?
Yeah, does this property abut the Thatcher bogs that are,
Thatcher's Bog, well, it doesn't abut it. Thatcher's Bog is here, right here.
right there?
So it's on the other side of Main Street.
Okay.
This property does, however, and I'm not positive because of the deeds of the previous people that were in front of this board with the Housing Trust. They talked about Queen Anne Road property being developed in possibly 2 phases. There is some land out in this area that may abut the back of this, just to let you know.
Okay,
Kind of give you an idea where it's located. There is power lines that come in the back too.
okay.
That go off this grid in the back on the top.
Is any part of this property visual, can you see it from, I'm just trying to get my bearings as to where it is. Can you see it from,
If you come down Main Street,
yeah,
where the winery is.
yeah, I don't know where the winery is, actually.
You know, when you first get on Main Street,
Yeah.
it makes that sharp turn and
Yeah.
goes down, and then makes it kind of another left, and Lothrop Street, are you
Yeah,
familiar with
yep,
Lothrop?
yep.
Lothrop is right here.
Okay,
So as you come down Main Street, you cross Lothrop, there's a power station right here.
Yep.
Electric
Yep.
substation, and then you drive down a little ways, and right here is a small building, which was my farm stand, and I ran a farm stand out of it. This is a small house that's carved out of the property, it's a private owner. And basically, the only thing along here, you will see about 30 feet back, is a post and rail fence with wire on it.
okay.
There's a gate right here now.
So you can't visually see this from the bike trail or anything?
No, you won't see
No.
this building from the bike. trail.
Okay.
You won't see that building from Main Street.
Okay,
You
that
know
was just a question I had.
You're probably 2,000 feet back.
Okay. One of the things I read was that there was, a chance that there might be some contaminated soil.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, we're not.
Absolutely not, and I take exception to that. I've been here-
I'm not saying one way or the
That's
other.
not an
I'm
accusation.
just saying that I read that in the information.
That-
Okay, and I wanted to ask about remediation and that kind of thing, time and money that it takes for that kind of thing.
You're correct that the intermunicipal agreement references that.
Yeah.
Because that was in protection for us.
Yeah.
But there is no evidence that
Okay.
that's true.
The
Just
only
a
evidence,
question.
Just so you'll know, because you need the history, and that's why I came here, was to provide a lot of you people the history, okay? The town dump, town landfill, is located right here off the map on the other side of Flax Pond.
Mm-hmm.
When I took over this property, they capped the landfill. When they capped the landfill, the hydraulics of the water under the landfill polluted Flax Pond. Flax Pond was deemed unusable and undrinkable water. At that time, this was before I had it, the gentleman lived in that house. He had a well, and the well was contaminated from the town dump. The town subsequently let him hook up the town water. There is now town water on the property. And when I took over the property, at that time, Paula Champagne was the director of the Board of Health. Paula and I worked very long and did a lot of things with Flax Pond to remediate that. Aerating it, we had those spinning air things
Yep.
out there. And I also drained that pond down a few times with my tractor right down to nothing and let it to keep flushing it out. So as far as contamination goes, and what you may have been heard.
I didn't hear
there was
anything.
that.
I'm just reading
Right.
from the information I was given.
Yeah, that was in the,
reason why- And I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, but the reason why I took exception is because there were some members of the Conservation Commission that claimed I had products on the property, and it ended up being organic fish fertilizer. So
Yeah, and-
I think that's why I said that. So
That's
I
fine.
I apologize.
Okay, so the budget that was prepared by the, whoever it is, which was mostly site
yeah, and
prep,
it's
et
very,
cetera, comes to like a little under 5.5 million. What do you estimate the cost of a 10,000 square foot building to be? And in addition, greenhouses, barns, et cetera, because this is gonna add a lot more money to the price tag.
so I said that very thing to the team, that we're at that number and we don't have a building. So keep in mind that that budget was developed before they've really done much. So it was a kind of a, throwing a dart. I've maintained I want to be around that budget, and that's my goal. I'm not, and I'm going to, as I said, I'm going to be getting firmer numbers in the next several weeks to a month. So, and you have option A, B, and C, I shared that. I'm looking at potentially modular buildings rather than stick-built. So we're looking at all sorts of, in-kind. We're talking with some contractors that maybe would help with some in-kind services that lower the cost of this. None of this is written in stone at this point. I don't have a firm budget yet because we're still developing it.
Okay, but you requested of our committee to take a look at 978,000, or whatever the number was.
87, yeah.
Okay,
987.
where did that number come from? What
Well-
does that represent?
That's the ballpark figure I've heard about the civil, the work to, all that work up to the building. Like the road, the utilities, the parking, the trails, contouring the land to accept the building is I think estimated around $1 million.
Okay,
So
okay.
that's, and as I said, I'll get firmer
Okay.
prices in the near future.
Can a student now who lives in the other part of the Cape but wants to participate in environmental science or veterinary science, do they have an opportunity to go to the Bourne facility to take those courses?
So as Mr. Ketchum mentioned, if you're in Falmouth, Sandwich,
Right.
Bourne, Wareham, you can go to Upper Cape.
Right,
If we don't have these programs, there is a way for a student in our towns to go to Upper Cape. It's kind of convoluted. They have to go to us first, because really 14-year-olds don't know what they want to do.
right.
But they'll say, I want to be in vet science. They can come to us, see what we have to offer, and then if they come to the conclusion that they still want vet science, they don't like anything we offer, they can apply it to Upper Cape. But the other reality there is Upper Cape has a waiting list too.
I'm sure, yeah.
So Barnstable High School has an environmental science program, Chapter 74, which is another opportunity for Barnstable students and school choice students. And then this would open it up for students from Provincetown to Mashpee. And once we had these programs, students from Provincetown to Mashpee, they wouldn't have that ability to go to Upper Cape because we
Right.
would now have those programs.
Right, and have you had a lot of inquiries and interest in these particular programs?
So as a part of applying to the DESE, Department of Ed, we had to, there's two parts. There's a Part A and a Part B. We've passed Part A for the Chapter 74 approval. Part B involves safety, it involves the building, so we can't get Part B until we have a facility. But Part A was an advisory committee for both programs, who I met with this morning. and then workforce and student demand. So we did surveys of our ninth grade families at our school as a survey, just to get a sense of if we had these programs, and we got a very good response in both cases, and supplied that as part of our application for Part A to the DESE. So we've satisfied workforce demand, we've satisfied student demand, and we've satisfied, we've established advisory committees as part of the Part A process.
Does the 4Cs have programs in vet science and environmental
They
science?
don't, great question, but they are looking to partner with both of our schools. So in our applications for these grants that we've received, Cape Cod Community College has been referenced, and Dr. Cox wrote a support letter for the 2 grants that I talked about early in my presentation. Just because, take vet science, for instance, we would be training them as vet assistants, which is like a CNA in the health world, and then you can go on to a nurse or an LPN, right? In vet, it's vet assisting, then it's vet tech, which is an associate's degree. I see that training could go on here in off hours, when the high school students aren't there. They could be offering vet tech on this site as well, having a dual use of the facility, excuse me.
So what's the path that your students would take upon graduation?
So in both programs, I think they can go right into the workforce, or they can go on to further education. And that's true with most of our programs. But it's very similar to, in vet tech, it's very similar to our health tech program. The patient changes, but, and then the environmental is similar to like our engineering program, engineering technology, where they can go be technicians, or in our case of our students in engineering, drone pilots. They get trained they get licenses as drone pilots. So there are opportunities to go right into the workforce, but also it also encourages further education as well.
And then my last question is it sort of standard operating procedure to, say, come before like a community preservation, committee seeking funds for a program like this once, obviously the taxpayers have already funded the Cape Tech School.
Yep.
And it's a fantastic facility. I'm taking an adult ed class there right now. It's a beautiful facility. But, is this sort of standard, or you want to create a new program, so then you need to hit the taxpayers again for more money? So I'm just wondering, is this sort of the
Is it
way?
standard? No.
And I want to step in on this, because you're actually developing a curriculum for the school, and I don't know how the taxpayers of the town of Harwich are going to feel about that
Okay.
in a general sense.
Well, I'm not looking for the funds here for the curriculum, the building. I'm looking for the
Hardscape.
community resource that this could be, in addition to being what I want it to be, what we're doing it to originally to be. So I'm not looking for if I would want this committee to support it because they see it as a community resource as well as a school. For example, the facility over there, I believe, is a community resource. As you mentioned, you're taking classes over there. We have people in and out of there, organizations, nonprofits, municipalities. The firefighters come over to us every month. Like, we look at our school that you helped fund as an event space in addition to a high school. And I think this open space here, that primarily that's open space, is where I'm looking to this committee. I'm not looking for you to fund the school. I mean, once that's up, it's going to be part of our operating budget for the school overall, but hopefully serving many more students. But I look at, no, if it's to fund the building and the curriculum and the teachers you will eventually, hopefully.
We don't fund salary and wages.
No.
No, as a taxpayer, we do, though.
Yeah,
Well, that's we're not talking, we're talking
No,
about CPC.
I know,
Right.
but he's talking about other.
Basically, all that green and gray stuff and the bogs is where and the infrastructure to get back there is what I'm really looking for from this committee. And is it standard? No. No, it is not. I do know that schools have gone to CPC. I don't know if that's true in Harwich, but in other communities, I've seen it in my town of Yarmouth. But is it standard? No. No.
I'm good.
All set. Okay, anything else from any other board member? Hearing none, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you for your consideration. I appreciate it.
Go ahead, sure.
Couple of things. I know it's been brought up about the ask going to other towns. I certainly will talk to Bob about that. But as a Harwich resident and a proponent of this project, I think it would go a long way if the town of Harwich showed that they support it. I think it would help us as we go forward to the other towns, and I certainly know he believes that he's gonna be doing that. Number one. Number two, I'm gonna age myself horribly now. All of you are volunteers, and I want you to think 50 years ago, there was a board just like you volunteered sitting here, hearing about a concept and an idea to build a tech school over in Harwich, here in Harwich. And thankfully, that board agreed to it and helped fund it and got behind it, supported it. And look at the jewel that we have today that everybody in the town of Harwich should be proud of. When I started this campaign over 6 years ago now, I had no intentions that it was gonna have to be this grandiose, to be very honest with all of you. My intentions were to have a working farm turned into an educational facility. But when you move forward with these things, and Bob is presented with the laws and the different hurdles that he has to jump through, ADA compliance, safety requirements for students, you no longer can just take a tractor and say, I put a walkway in. This is just an unbelievable amount of things that have come up that now it's turning into really a grandiose project. And I think people in the town of Howard would be very, very proud of it, and I think you people would be well-deserved to support it. I know the million ask is a lot, but maybe a portion of it now, so that we can go forward and ask other towns to put in some, I think would help us a long way. But I'm just telling all of you that I hope as this moves forward, that 50 years from today, people are gonna say, wow, that was great, look what they did. Because there's a lot going on in this town. There is an awful lot going on in this town. In this project, though, it's gonna be something that I know I'm gonna go to my grave very proud that I started, because I think it's gonna make a big difference, not only in land use, but certainly education, and young adults, children and our young adults. So I hope to support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for coming. All right, next. Old business, possible update of the grant agreements. Has anything come of that?
What did you just say, sweetie, on this?
The possible update of the grant agreements.
You want me to tell you?
Sure.
Okay. So on the grant agreements, all of them for this year are done, except one, and that's the trust.
Trust.
And I don't want to hear about grants until next May.
Okay,
And we're missing one of the update status reports, and that's Skinny. All the rest of the update status reports are in. I don't know the status on having a representative from the Harwich Housing Authority, Tracy Cannon. I haven't heard what the outcome of her coming in and answering questions, though.
okay. I personally went to see, down at the Harbor Master's office.
The Natural Resources
Natural-
Director.
Natural
Mr.
Resources.
Yanuzzi.
Yeah.
And he assured me the time that I went to see him, which was more than a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, that he'd send us the document the next day with an update of Skinnequit. That hasn't happened. So, I don't know where, I'm gonna send a letter to him from this committee, if that's all right with the committee, and put the letter in the context of it's a demand to show up and give us information that we're requesting. So, would anybody like to take a crack at putting a different edge on that?
Can I make a recommendation?
You can, and I'd appreciate that,
I
please.
still think it needs to be communicated through the town administration's office,
It was,
so.
twice.
I mean, at this point, administration is the one that tells department heads what they do and where to show up.
And the letter will go as a demand to administration.
Just my 2 cents.
Got it. Anybody else want to weigh in on that? Okay, thank you. Emily's not here tonight, she's indisposed. Website out in the application, anything?
I don't have any updates. It's all working at the moment, so.
Okay, so our next meeting agenda points, anything from the board members? The one thing that's going to be on there is a discussion with the person from finance that's going to do the truing up of the numbers. She'll be in the audience. The chair of the Board of Selectmen will be in the audience. We'll have that discussion on the CPC numbers, the percentage and how that's going to work. Anybody have any other, John?
Will that discussion include a restatement of the numbers we got at our last meeting, which my notes disappeared and was looking for them today.
Disappeared?
I actually wrote them down.
Oh
which
my
is
God, John.
On a piece of paper, which is why. I
Should never rely on paper.
No, never.
Boy, I'm disappointed.
Really?
Anyway, I will see to that happening.
Thank you.
Okay. And our newest member, would you please identify yourself to the board?
I held my breath all that time. You're lucky I didn't start speaking because I had some facts and figures I could throw out there to try to push a conversation to different directions, but I was told not to speak. Art Bowden, I'm your new, which hopefully will be appointed or sworn in tomorrow morning.
There we
One
go.
little detail.
The most important detail of all.
Yeah, I was away for a whole week and on a great trip, and of course the holiday, and it totally went by my mind. But the phone never rung, and I never got an email from anybody or whatever, so maybe I'm only half wrong. But tomorrow I'll get over here first thing and get that little thing taken care of. It's a pleasure to join you folks. You're doing some good work here. I'm really interested in some of the things you're doing. And I think everyone is really, really into everything that's being presented to you. Like the give and take and the conversation is great. Thank you.
No, thank you. So, next week, next Thursday, same time, same place. And you will be sworn in. Okay, is there anything else from anybody else from the board have anything?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
We're out of here.